Welcome back, y'all, to another episode 55? 54 of the Spin Hoops podcast. Today, we have a lot of stuff to get to. Obviously, our last podcast went up a little late, and so today we're going to tie up those loose ends. We're going to talk about Team USA and their gold medal winning run in the Olympics this year. But more importantly, we're also going to feature a guest, a long overdue guest, to come in here and talk about the Philadelphia 76ers and their exciting offseason and whatnot. But Anthony, the Team USA as a whole, not just basketball, but in general, finished tied for first for gold medals in the Olympics. How are we feeling? Are we feeling patriotic?
We were, and now we're back. Let's go.
And then the Olympics end. Yeah. Election year vibes.
Hell yeah. Now we're locked back into the partisan shit.
Yeah, seriously. And speaking of partisanship, we have some really aggressive agendas to spread, some debates to discuss, and we're gonna hop right into it. The Olympics, obviously, for basketball, pretty entertaining stuff went down. Obviously, Team USA getting the chip, beating France in the final. People are gonna remember these Olympics for Stephen Curry's incredible, last two closeout games. But as a whole, this was like a really fascinating international basketball tournament, frankly, especially with Team USA being so they were discombobulated at first, but the competition was good.
Competition was great. Teams looked really good. Serbia played real well. Germany was a scary threat for a while. I had Australia as a dark horse threat. Serbia knocked them out in OT. Jokic was amazing. Dude, France looked good. But the USA, baby, I mean, I don't know what we're going to do for 2028. We'll have that conversation. But to have Steph, LeBron, and KD as the torchbearers for this, especially Steph and LeBron, the two icons of our generation, leading this thing, I mean, it was fun watching France versus USA because even though France was keeping it close, Wemby was playing really well. Yabusele, former Celtic, was playing real well. Felt like it was like
dunked on LeBron, or no, he didn't
the
dunk.
dunk on LeBron. Yeah, the dunk
Oh,
on
okay,
LeBron.
okay.
He dunked on LeBron hard, dude. It was nuts.
He's been posting about it nonstop, and he keeps tweeting, "Is this AI?" Like what they, it's just kind of funny.
That's trolling. That's trolling. The only real question I had when it got close and France kept pulling it closer and closer because they had a decent lead on them was who's going to close out this game? Is it going to be LeBron or is it going to be Steph? And Steph said, hold up, I got this, and hit 4 clutch threes. In my mind, I know LeBron for a while and Steph for a while had this like, are they clutch when it matters most narrative for a decent amount of their careers. The way that Steph closed it out was incredible. To have a fun time heater at the very end of a gold medal game is amazing. Very blessed to watch these guys play. And I'm curious what we think about where they are all-time ranking. But Max, what are some of your reflections about this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I was really fascinated about the final. France actually showed more resiliency than I almost thought they would, and they already beat Germany in a close game. But I mean, there's so much to get to. Canada rolled over in this tournament, first of all. That's like the first thing I want to talk about. They rolled over completely. In our last podcast, I'm ranting about how RJ Barrett's averaging 25 a game. They get pretty much stomped in the quarterfinals by France, which should not have happened, frankly. France, after this game, benches Gobert. They bench Gobert because, Gobert. And you have Wemby. So it didn't make sense to ever, like, they basically decided after the Canada game, France is like, we're not playing Wemby and Gobert at the same time. We're done with this. And frankly, worked out. They just played Wemby 35 minutes a game, and it was great. A little surprised that Germany didn't beat France in that semifinal game. Like, that was obviously a really close game, but even in the finals, I was really impressed with France's resilience. But I mean, to be fair, Serbia did play us closer than France did. To be totally objective about it.
Oh, 100%.
Overall, though, that was a great tournament. Thought Serbia was probably the second best team. I thought Germany was going to be the second best team. They ended up being probably the fourth or fifth best team, if we're being real about it. Probably they might have been worse than Australia at this tournament. But yeah, I don't know. Great tournament. Also, Serbia coming back 24 down from Australia in the quarterfinals. Like, if they lose that game, this tournament might turn out a lot differently, just in terms of like third place finishes and whatnot. and how I feel about even France. Like if Serbia doesn't play the US this close and then France has a performance like that in the finals, maybe I feel differently about France as a team. But seeing the way Serbia played, I was very impressed. So those are some thoughts. Team USA wise, we will get to this. Obviously that we had the three pillars of the team. Tatum didn't play very much, whatever. I'm kind of over that storyline just because it's fine. Like I don't really care. But we'll get to this later. The fourth guard or we would play with a center, and then the fourth skill position outside of the center ended up being Devin Booker, which that was very impressive. We can get to that later if you want, though. I would be down to talk more about Steph and LeBron and that legacy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, my thinking too on Booker was he was really the only guy that I had some confidence in based off of how consistent he was. And probably, I mean, Drew Holiday, only guy that was on the younger end. Drew Holiday played great as well.
Amazing.
But I even remember a tweet Kyle Kuzma tweeted last year after FIBA, who's going to
We
step
need
up?
some role players.
And
Yes.
Book was like, I got it. And he did exactly that. I guess he has a history of having that. We kind of forget because he's been the man for his franchise for his entire career. But
Kentucky, he was a
he
sixth,
was
he was
right.
a sixth man. He didn't even
So
start at Kentucky.
if anything, this made me kind of higher on the Suns, honestly, just like how they play. I don't think they're going to win a chip. I don't think that they're like contenders, but like they're KD and Book once again showed out. So that is always something you can count on.
I don't know if it made me higher on the Suns, but it's like I mean, so before last season, and I think the year before that, I've been talking about how I think D Book is amazing, and I thought D Book was better than KD and whatever. And then I put KD in my All NBA, and I didn't put D Book in there. Um, uh, and then this is just got me right back on the train of thinking D Book is better than KD. But that's neither here nor there. Some just to highlight how good D Book was, the third person who got the third most minutes a game on this team was D Book outside of Steph and LeBron. He shot 60% from three, 59%, 58% from the field. I, the defense was really good. That was also what I was most impressed by, frankly. Like, I know I'm a D-Book fan, frankly, which I wasn't when I was like even 3, 4 years ago. I was not a fan of D-Book, but he really stepped it up defensively in general. And in this tournament, I got to see more of that. It's like he doesn't have to have the ball every single time down the court, and he can actually play not even just good defense, but he was great defensively to the point where they didn't need to play Drew Holiday as much by the end of the tournament. And obviously, Drew Holiday was playing amazing, and there was minutes to be had, so he still played a ton. But that's why in crunch time they could roll with Book instead of Drew because Book's defense was good enough where you'd rather just have Book in the corner where defenses aren't letting Drew stay open for three, right? Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
defenses really aren't letting Book stay open for three, right? But
Yes.
if you just, Book, I don't know why else Book would have been on the court if because
Oh yeah.
obviously Drew is better defensively.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the Book brought his defense to a level where
Yeah.
it was more worth to have Book on the court, which
Oh,
yeah.
100%.
So that's kind of where I was at with that. Other takeaways, the center position never really got figured out. It didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Didn't really matter. But yeah, that was another takeaway of mine. But yeah, I was very impressed with Book. I love watching him play. I'm a big fan. Feel vindicated once again. Yeah.
Did you or I draft him? I feel like one of us drafted him for the smoothest player draft.
We might, yeah, maybe.
I
I
forget
don't
who.
think so. I don't think I drafted him. I drafted
You
like I remember three of my picks when I
Brunson,
drafted
Wemby.
Brunson, Zion, and Trey Murphy. That was three of my picks.
You drafted Wemby too, I thought.
I might have drafted one B too, yeah. Dude, did you see it? Remember that clip? I sent you this on Twitter. Remember the 3-point line Hezi that got
Oh
him
my
from?
lord. And
Dude,
then dunk.
if you're 7'4" with a Hezi like that and the ball can come up to your hip, the ball, you can hesitate for a full like second and a half when you're at that height. And that is like you have to jump on him. Anyways, he was also
Especially,
great in the final. He was also great in the
he looked really good.
yeah.
He showed a lot.
The moment didn't feel too big for him. He wasn't even that good this tournament at all, Wemby, but the moment didn't feel too big for him, despite not being that good.
Yeah, they'll be back, man. Well, we have plenty of time to talk about them, but they will be back.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal that LeBron won MVP. How do you feel?
I don't think it's that big a deal either. I think
Sure.
Steph should have won it, but Windhorst did talk about this today, actually. And we know I've roasted Windhorst a lot on this podcast. So I first will give you guys the this is Brian Windhorst reporting like disclaimer. So for I'll give that to y'all. But I mean, apparently the MVP award voting happened before the semifinals games. In which case, if that is true, LeBron is definitely the MVP of this tournament. That's like the other side of it, where I think if what Windhorst is saying is true, 100% chance then LeBron
Sure.
should have been MVP. This with the games, I think Steph should have been MVP. LeBron still has a stake to it. LeBron is still the second best player in this tournament by far, and it was like really close between him and Steph, in my opinion. But like, yeah, in terms of consistent performances of the whole full course of the tournament, it's not really debatable that it was LeBron.
The analogy to me feels like if you and I are playing beer pong together, I hit 7 out of the first 8 shots and I'm carrying, and then you swish the last 2 and close out the game. That's kind of what it felt like to me.
Like the last three.
Sure, last 3. I hit the
I'm
first,
just,
second, the last 3.
I'm just,
But um,
I iced it at the
you
end.
iced it.
Yeah,
You iced it. And not only did you ice it, you threw up the craziest shot. I thought he was joking when he threw that up with Katie and LeBron on the other side of the wing, like, hey, we're open. And it was like, oh, that's going in too.
did you
That
see
is going in too.
even LeBron? LeBron went. I mean, it's the only player in history who's getting double teamed. And first of all, the other team is actively double teaming off of KD and LeBron. First of
Mm-hmm.
all, only player
Yep.
in history that's ever happened where teams are doubling off of KD and LeBron. Only player in history where KD with no man on him, gave it back to the guy who's getting double teamed. The
Right.
guy who's getting double teamed shot it anyways with KD and LeBron wide open. It went in. No one got mad. Everyone celebrated.
Night, night.
And even if it had missed, no one would have got mad. That's the other side of it. Even if it had missed that, no one would have got pissed.
Oh, yeah, because he had done enough that the game was kind of out of hand with his. Because those first 2 3-pointers were
The first
the first
or
3 as well. They were all very impressive in their own right. And that first one especially was very clutch. Like those first 2 were clutch, clutch, and then he just caught a heater,
yeah.
like which is sick. So
I I mean, look, I agree. I do think Steph should have been MVP, frankly. Like 30 second highest scoring performance in the Team USA game, and then to have that performance in the final is pretty difficult at that point for me to say that he wasn't the MVP. But LeBron has a state. It's like Jokic and Luka this year in regular season. I'm not mad that LeBron got it.
and for me, Jalen Brown or Jason Tatum, like in the
In the
final, like it's kind of
That's honestly, yeah, I feel similarly as well there.
um,
But yeah, I think that kind of wraps up this section. Anything else on Team USA you want to talk about, Tones?
just 5 for 20 in the first 4 games, and then going 17 of 26 from the 3-point line for Steph that's just special, man. I don't know. There's nobody else. So grateful for this team. The Avengers came to play. Maybe sometime we'll do like a ranking of what we think the best USA teams are. But this was just impressive to see.
And
The
and we have
yeah,
we have a pod coming up that we'll talk about 2028. We have so much more to talk about too because the next few drafts are filled with international prospects. The last few drafts were filled with international prospects who haven't been playing internationally. Even this year, like obviously we had Sar and the French guys who got drafted, but we also had like Topic who got drafted to the Heat, you
right.
know. Um
Jovic.
Jovic who got drafted a few years back and he's playing. He's playing for the team who gets third right now, you know.
Yeah. Franz Wagner, bro, he's gonna be amazing.
I mean, we also got to talk about Schroeder just rotting on the Nets. Like someone's got to save, bro. But
Yeah. I mean, also the role player effect of like a Bogdanovich putting up crazy stats, like that seems to never stop in international ball.
you should have seen Hawks Twitter was pissed. They're like, where's this dog? Where's this dog during this season? I'm like, I'd be pissed too.
Bro, we got to get a Hawks fan on here.
Yeah, we're still looking for them. We're crowdsourcing at this point, so let us know.
Let us know.
I know there's a lot of big Ricochet fans out there. With that though, we're gonna wrap this section up and we'll get right into the 76ers season preview with Noah right now.
Catch y'all.
All right, today we've got Noah Haynes, our resident Philadelphia 76ers fan. He's been in the trenches for 4 or 5 years, and this year he's got a little bit of hope. Noah, how are we feeling?
Feeling good. Happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me. Honored to be on. If you're not listening to Spittin' Hoops, I don't know what you're doing. So good to be on. Excited to talk Sixers. So appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and we should have had you on earlier, honestly. Noah is a far too recurring character when it comes to any Philadelphia 76ers discussions when it comes to our personal lives. So honestly, we should just get right into it. Anthony, do you want to take us away and talk about last year's regular season?
Yeah, what a regular season with ups and downs from Harden getting traded early on. The Sixers go on a tear. They start the season 29-14 as a top 2, top 3 seed. And then just a week later, after Embiid puts 70 on Wemby's head, he gets hurt. Sixers go 10-21 in that span and fall to about 39-35-ish without Embiid. They're on the outside looking in. They're in the play-in tournament, but then they go 8-0. They close out strong. They beat the Heat in the play-in game. Embiid comes back, but he's not completely healthy. We see Maxey as a one player, and Embiid does his best. Seems like on a hobbled leg. No, I want to hear your perspective on this. Maxey has an all-time game 5, and that's a fun, entertaining series that goes 6, unfortunately, and you guys bump out.
Yeah, first round exit. I think the vibe the whole year, and we'll get to this, was like it was all transition year. I mean, we could have made a move at the deadline and traded Tobias for Zach LaVine, and like that could have been our move. And I'm glad we didn't. We'll get into that. But like it was a transition year. James Harden calls our GM a liar a year ago today. Pretty much like it was ups and downs. It felt like Ben Simmons all over again, pretty much. Like we had a guy on the team, he didn't want to play. We start the season, as you said. I mean, it started. Embiid dropped 70. He gets hurt. We went out on the West Coast and we lost to Portland. We lost to Denver. We lost to the Warriors. We almost lost to the Jazz. Like Embiid was out. Things were falling a little bit. And then, got to the play-in. We were trying to avoid the play-in as much as we could. And then made it to the play-in. The Nick Batum game went crazy in the fourth quarter. I love Batum. I'll get to that. Like I think that was a tough loss that we won't have him this year. I think he's a stud. And then we get the Knicks. And we played them tough. I mean, Embiid gets hurt in game 1 pretty much. He had that monster slam on Anunoby. And he threw it off the backboard. And then, it was a competitive series. Every game was super close. And we can get into the series a little bit. But Maxey, I mean, game 5. That was the highlight of the year, the big shot, kept our season alive, gave us another chance. And then fell in game 6, really kind of got blown out. Buddy Hield went crazy a little bit and got us back in that game. And then Josh Hart, it was the perfect encapsulation of the series. Josh Hart hits the dagger. This guy's made 6 threes all year, and he went 4 for 8, 4 for 8, 5 for 8 in the series in big games. He was huge for the Knicks. But good, honestly, competitive year. Nick Nurse, first year. I like him. Looking forward to year 2. But yeah, good season. Fall in the first round, but it was a transition year for the most part.
Yeah, and going over the deadline really quick, I feel like that's the biggest encapsulation of it being a transition year. It was like we know we have a good team, but and I'll get to this later. I'll do the play-by-play by year of how much this team has changed. But it felt like you guys knew changes need to come. Daryl Morey wanted to tell Embiid not to get mad, wanted to tell the fan base not to get mad. So you send Morris for Korkmaz, who's been asking for a trade every year since 2016. He finally got traded, shout out. But you trade Morris, Korkmaz, 3 second-round picks for Buddy Hield, who walks. Then, you go, what was it? Pat Bev for campaign and Pat Bev and a second-round pick for campaign. So it's like these are moves where you're down to give up second-round picks. But we're not dipping into the stash of first-round picks the Sixers have, which includes two future Clippers picks, future best of Houston, OKC, and Clippers pick, etc. So Morey was very aware of what assets he had, and he was willing to spend second-round picks and not first. And that kind of tells you, as good as this team was, they're not ruining their plans to go make this team better. Overall, though, I thought it was given that you guys knew that, and given that, again, a year ago today, James Harden, the guy who had just won you 2 playoff games against the Celtics the year before, like, is telling a group of Chinese elementary schoolers that the GM is a liar.
That's crazy.
First of all, unbelievable moment. But that's how the season started. And given all the injuries and whatnot, and given this offseason, because if this offseason goes worse, we're having a different discussion as well. But given all that, I feel like you got to be kind of hyped to be in the situation you're in now.
It is. I've never been in a standpoint where like the Sixers have leverage with like future moves. Like every year was just getting off Ben Simmons, and then last summer it was, what happened with Harden. The fact that Morey was still able to get 2 first-round picks, Batum, who played key minutes in the playoffs and played well. We got KJ Martin, who we'll get to, who I think he could be a flip this year at the deadline, I think. But, we had no leverage last offseason, and now, we have Maxey, who's progressed, and we'll get to Paul George. And it worked out, and we got 2 firsts out of a situation that looked super bleak just 1 year ago.
And going off the leverage thing, I'll go by year, but because since Jimmy and Toby got traded for in 18-19, and since Brand took over in that offseason, it's been a mess. It's really been a mess. There's been no leverage. The team has had to respond to situations. They've never been able to be proactive. So 18-19, you trade for Jimmy and Toby, you get eliminated by Kawhi's buzzer beater. You sign and trade Jimmy away for Josh Richardson, who's actually your second top scorer the next year in the playoffs, funny enough. But that's when you get 4-0 first round swept by Boston. Simmons misses the whole series with that patella injury. But you tell yourself, okay, Simmons was hurt. We're going to run the team back. You lose in 7 to Atlanta the year after in 2021. But then it's like, okay, now we have to ship off Ben Simmons. Again, the year before, you got to fire Bruce Brown the year before. That or Brett Brown. That got to be the excuse. This year, okay, the excuse is we need to move Ben Simmons. We throw him under the bus. Doc Rivers throws him under the bus. Frankly, Embiid also throws him under the bus. A year later, you trade Simmons for Harden. You lose in 6 to Miami in the second round. Year 2 of Miami. He plays well, but, meltdown. You don't want to give him the max. Daryl Morey's a liar. So, it's always reactive. This was the first year that Morey had to take 2-3 years to put this team in the situation, to be fair, because along the way, there was a lot of moves. There was Al Horford coming in. There was Robert Covington going in and out. There was Josh Richardson going in and out. There was JJ Redick. There was Matisse Thybulle. There was, Jalen McDaniels. There's a cast of characters that's rolled through the Sixers the last 4 or 5 years, and I think it's hilarious. But Morey really put the team in a situation where it's like, no matter and it sucks. The Sixers could have won 50 games this year by February, March. There were no moves coming, no matter what. They wanted to put themselves in a situation where they could control what was going down. And I think it worked out.
I think so. I mean, Elton Brand, his legacy is Al Horford. He paid Al Horford $100 million for him to stop killing us, pretty much, in the playoffs. That's pretty much why we paid him. It didn't work with Embiid. We thought they could play together. It didn't work. It was the Raptors. Jimmy hurts the most out of any Sixers moment in the last decade.
As it should.
But honestly, the most deflating point was the Hawks series. We had the Hawks beat. Like we haven't been to a conference finals in my life pretty much, besides 01, and I barely count that. But like the Hawks was the most deflating. We were up huge in that series. Should have taken a commanding like 3-1 lead. Blew that game. They tied it up, and then the rest was Ben Simmons. I mean, there's the iconic picture of Trae Young guarding him underneath the basket, and he doesn't want to take the shot. So he lost.
Shout out to Toby. Funny enough,
Dude, Toby pulled his best Ben Simmons in that next series. I'll tell you that. He lost all confidence pretty much. I mean, like he had no confidence in his
To
game.
this day.
And he's still making what 2 years 52 for Detroit next year.
That's crazy.
It's crazy,
Bro, let me ask you something. How happy are you to have him gone before we talk about all the additions?
Dude. I mean, like I mean,
Yeah, get on him. Get on him.
did you see the tweet? Did you see his goodbye tweet where he was like, "What can't be said can't be said. Looking forward to join the Pistons."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he said what a year ago the Sixers would trade him for what, a crumble cookie or something like that, and we were right, and Sixers fans continue to be right about that. I mean, dude, he didn't, he had no confidence in that series. Like what, in game 7 he went 0 for 2 from the field, 0 points. Like it was the perfect end to his career. In Philadelphia, I'll tell you, it'll always be Jimmy versus Toby. That's his legacy, is pretty much like and I think it was Ben Simmons, honestly, who he wanted to be, he wanted to be ball dominant Simmons, and he was worried Jimmy was going to take his touches a little bit. And it was one of the biggest mistakes ever. And we went and decided to max Harris instead of Jimmy. And then there's that, iconic
Tobias Harris
over me. Yeah, exactly.
And
so that's his legacy, is like we took him for 4 years of mediocrity over Jimmy, who made the NBA Finals 2 years ago with Haywood Highsmith. So like
Sixers legend, by the way.
Sixers legend.
On the Sixers during this point of time as well.
Process Sixer Haywood Highsmith.
Let's
Yep.
go.
So, dude, it won't even feel real till like the season starts and Tobias isn't there. But I'm telling you, it's a huge relief. I mean, it was 5+ years on a bad contract. That is like the fact that the Sixers didn't move him before and they let this whole thing drag out. Like, if I'm Embiid, they're saying patience. Like, Embiid had the right to be frustrated that he had to deal with the entire Tobias era, and they just let that contract play out. I think they mishandled that for sure.
Your second or third highest paid player is scoring 17 a game, shooting 36% from 3, putting up average defense. Like, don't get me wrong, Tobias Harris he's on the court. He's not Ben Simmons right now, but like,
yeah.
It's almost worse. It's almost worse because you can't convince yourself to dump him. You can't, when he's averaging like in year two of this contract, in the second year, when he averages 20 a game and he shoots 38% from 3, and the eye test isn't passing, but you look at Basketball Reference, you go, like you could talk yourself. It's almost worse. It's almost worse because you could talk yourself into it. I do want to revisit that little sequence. It's probably been talked about so much, and I've talked about it on the pod before. But the only reason that Jimmy is not kept over Tobias Harris is because they traded first-round picks for Tobias Harris. They traded the 2020 first-round pick, Philadelphia's very own, Miami Heat's 2021 first-round pick as well, which Philly owned at the time. This trade, which goes through in 2018, I believe 2018-19 season, so 2 years before. These first-round picks are worth a lot. Jimmy Butler, on the other hand, gets traded for Jared Bayless, Robert Covington, Darius Harge, and a second-round pick, right? So when you trade only that for Jimmy Butler, like, or to be compared to all that you gave up for Tobias Harris, who, to his credit, the season with the Clippers he was having was unbelievable. 21 a game, 45% from three on 5 threes a game. And this is by far he had by far the best 55 game stretch of his career on the Clippers the season he was traded for. But since they gave up 2 first-round picks, they have to max him. They decided we have to max one of the two. We just gave up 2 firsts for one guy, and everyone watching the game of basketball at the time also knew Jimmy Butler was better than Tobias Harris, but that was the rationale. And you go from there. It's literally one of my favorite what ifs in history, because if Jimmy Butler signs, maybe Horford doesn't end up going. Maybe,
Ben doesn't have that.
Yeah, maybe you can overcome. Maybe the Ben Simmons is Ben Simmons stuff is overcomable, because frankly, there was an argument that they were the best team in the East that season where they had Jimmy Butler. So there's so many questions here. I don't know. I love it. And then one of my favorite tidbits is in Josh Richardson's interview at the end of the season, the season after he gets traded to the Sixers. He's roasting Elton Brand. During my prep. This is one of my favorite things that I found. He's the second. Josh Richardson scores 18 a game in the 4-game sweep where the Celtics sweep the Sixers. He's the second best player on the Sixers, pretty much in that series by far. Only other double-digit scorer outside of Embiid. And then goes into the press conference, roasts the crap out of Elton Brand, says there's zero accountability here. Same stuff that Jimmy Butler said, and I think he got traded the next year. With Brett Brown gets fired. So that's
you make a good point. You make a good point about the Clippers year. Like, we traded for Tobias when he was at peak value, pretty much, and then a big part of Doc Rivers was he got the best year out of Tobias Harris, and I think that prolonged Doc's tenure in Philly a little bit, is that they were hoping that was the right fit, and ultimately didn't work out. But I think they thought, Doc really liked Harris because of that season. So,
he pretty much instantly goes back to being like early Detroit / late Orlando Tobias Harris, which is better than like early career Tobias Harris. That's not max player Tobias Harris, and like you're screwed at that point. Like, because and Tobias Harris was a plus NBA player during the back end of this contract. Don't get me wrong, he was an above average NBA player. But if your if your second contract on your team is barely an above average NBA player, you're screwed, especially as a contender. And that's why he's the scapegoat. But is it really a scapegoat if it was kind of valid? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why I think the fact that we can get to where the Sixers fall this upcoming year, like the fact that we were pretty competitive against the Knicks in that series, with Tobias Harris being the second highest paid player. Of course, Maxey ultimately got the extension. He was the clear, there was clearly Embiid and Maxey, but it just goes to the point of like Tobias was still on the floor playing key minutes in that series, and he was our second highest paid player. We didn't move him. It was a transition year, and we still were competitive. Like it makes me feel decent. I think about the Sixers in the coming year.
I mean, your second highest paid player put up 9 points a game in that series, right? So
right, yeah.
I mean,
shout out.
If Anthony, do you have anything else on this season, the past few seasons? If not, I'm down to I'll get into the off season.
I saw something about Republicans should try to convince voters that Tobias Harris is related to Kamala Harris, so that they're undecided voters. Like, absolutely not. Like, let's get a mid president who on paper might look great, but in material is just not executing, especially not in the fourth quarter when the playoffs come around. So I don't know, man. I mean, good luck, good riddance. I'm really happy for you. Like, and I don't like the Sixers as a Celtics fan, but as an NBA fan, it just feels good. He can be back in Detroit. And it shuts a very long and painful chapter for you guys. So congratulations.
Yeah.
So good to move on.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, let's get into the offseason. I mean, number one, the priority here was, and this is hilarious because on the year anniversary of James Harden getting lied to, we're talking about how Maxey had a promise with Daryl Morey to get a max contract. The most, it wasn't reported, but the most open secret in the NBA. Obviously, Maxey gets his 5-year max this offseason. Actually gets more since he's all NBA adjacent and got an all-star berth than he could have gotten. But that's not the big news of the offseason, despite that being the expectation of the offseason. The news of the offseason is Paul George coming into cap space, 4 years, 212 million. One of the bigger free agency signings that we've seen in a while, and probably one of the bigger ones I think we'll see for a while, frankly. This kind of happens after the Clippers situation deteriorates. They offer him basically 4 years, 160 million, which is, very far under what he was worth. He tries to get signed and traded to the Warriors. Clippers don't want to take salary. They don't think the assets for the Warriors are good. And the Sixers are like, come into our cap space. We are right here. Falls perfectly, and frankly, for everyone involved. I think for Paul George too is also an amazing situation. But we could talk about the rest of the signings as we continue. But this is the crown jewel, not only for the Sixers, but this is the crown jewel of the free agency class of this offseason in general.
100%. And you started with it. Tyrese Maxey made it happen. I mean, he made it happen. Him waiting an extra year. You're my cap guy, but like him waiting an extra year and then cashing in when we were able to have that max slot because
he's just a cap hold. I mean, he's just a cap hold for like 10 mil.
Right.
He's gonna be playing for 40 million this season. And since he waited, he got to be technically a cap hold for 10 million, which lets you sign Paul George, which is great. It's a great cap movement by Daryl Morey as well, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Sixers built him shout out. They built him like a museum, by the way, because of it. Like it was huge. Like
they built him a museum.
It's like a small exhibit. You know what I mean? But they call it the Tyrese Maxey Museum right now in Philly. So
they got money. They had money to do it with all the money you saved them.
That's nuts.
So I think the biggest shock to me of the whole offseason, I stared at my phone reading that Clippers statement of about Paul George. Like I was shocked that I was like he's a Sixer. Like that when I was reading that was like, my immediate thought. KCP had already signed with the Magic, and I was like, we're competing with them cap piece wise. But I felt good about us getting Paul George anyway. But I still can't, I'm a little shocked that the Clippers didn't get anything in return for Paul George. Like that's for a Clippers preview. But and I don't know where they go from here. But it's like. Yeah, I read that statement. That was the first moment I felt like Sixers really got Paul George. And I think there's, I came into this pod. I think there's some public misconceptions about Paul George a little bit. And 100%, I see the playoff struggles this past year. But just to go over it, career best last season in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, free throw percentage, impact defender. I mean, he can guard the best guy, the best offensive guy on the floor. He played 74 games last year. Paul George and Kawhi didn't play together. Paul George played a lot last season, and he had career numbers in every shooting category. The upgrade from Tobias Harris to Paul George is insane. I mean, it's insane. So, look, 2 years from now, we might have a different conversation about how that contract looks. But, this is a guy coming off a career best season. His playoffs, 100%. I recognize it. I'm concerned about it, but I'm confident knowing the numbers he put up last year, the amount of games he played. I think Paul George gets a lot of criticism, but last year he had a good year. So I'm really liking that, and it's just a huge upgrade from Harris, obviously.
No, man, it's perfect. It is an absolutely beautiful fit. He fits a little bit in its own way a Jimmy Butler mold, and their careers are so comparable all time. Maybe that's another conversation. Cool that you guys have had both of those players on your franchise. Hopefully you don't mess this one up. No. And he is going to fit in the offense incredibly. If he can stay healthy, defensively, he's still so good. To your point, the improvement over Tobias Harris is absolutely nuts. He was still an all-star last year. Was he all NBA or was he all NBA, Jason? He was
Not
one of
all
the two.
NBA.
Whatever. I mean, yeah,
I put him in all NBA.
you did.
And I'll get to this.
That's what matters.
Yeah,
That's what
no,
matters.
for sure. But
I'm a Paul George believer, and I put him in all NBA this season. I thought he
Dude,
was deserving.
yeah,
He did not.
he played amazing, and he will be the third best player on your guys' team. So with that in mind, I think that, well, I mean, we'll talk about predictions and whatnot, but this signing and the fact that he doesn't have to do it all, and when last year against the Mavs, he was their best player who was healthy. And we saw what happened. He ran into a not playing amazing Luka, to be fair, but that was the better situation. He's the third best player on this team. He'll be able to, I think he'll, knock on wood, he'll be healthy because, I mean, love to go against the Sixers in the playoffs, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Celtics Sixers. Oh yeah.
I mean,
I'm scared. I'm scared. I don't want to see the Celtics, honestly. But like the series are great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just love the fit for, I don't know. I love the fit for so many reasons. This is Paul George now going to be the third best player on a team. In every playoff series we've ever seen Paul George in, he's been like the best player on the team. If he's been healthy, to be fair. And then Kawhi, to be fair, Kawhi and Paul George played a ton last year together, and they basically averaged the same stats. Like, if face value, I believe they're within one unit for both points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, steals per game. But like, they're literally within extremely close numbers across the board, really similar shooting percentages. Just Kawhi got the nod, and Kawhi did have a slightly better season, to be fair.
Yeah.
But Paul George was amazing. I think Paul George is going to be great. In the playoffs, he was good. Over the last few playoffs, he's had to be the guy, even in the play-in games too, leading this team when Kawhi's been out for a whole year stretch. They've made the play-in game with Paul George as their best player, which Toby could never do, like, frankly. And I think there's arguments, could Maxey lead a team that is like, could Maxey have led a Clippers-type team to a play-in berth in the West? Maybe not. Like, so Paul George deserves a lot of credit, in my opinion. I love that he's a ball handler and a ball creator too. You can kind of have some triangle stuff going on with him in the corner, Maxey up top, Embiid down low, back end action between the other role players. The other role players don't need to do that. The other role players don't need to create. Like, that's another thing. These other role players can be straight up cones. They can be just defense, 3 points. That's it. And that's the way you guys went, which we'll get to in a bit. But you're also not signing this contract for when Paul George is 34, which is at the end of this deal. You can trade him. You have first round picks still in the bank if you ever need to dump him for an upgrade. It's kind of like the Randall situation in New York, where like you have him, you're not trading him now, but you can you have assets to move him later. And we're not going to freak out about that now. I think it's all around like an amazing signing. I think it's an amazing fit. I love that he's tall. I love that he can defend, and I love that he's going to have less of an offensive burden and will have more ability to play defense. He's always played well with centers. He's enjoyed playing with centers, which is a weird aspect, especially in today's NBA. Like, Embiid is such a down low paint presence. And I think pairing up players with a guy like that is sometimes a little interesting. But Paul George has been used to it. Guys like Zubats, just paint monsters. Hibbert, these guys are just going to take up space down low. They're not stretching the floor at all. And it's difficult to play with those guys, and Paul George can do it. So when Embiid is in that mode, it's going to be fine. I think it's a 10 out of 10 signing. Like, I cannot talk about it enough. I love this. I think it's a great fit. I think this propels you guys to being a top 3 to 4 team in the East.
Yeah, 100%. I'm pumped about it. Yeah, I mean, George, that's the other thing too. Like, Tobias, like, the Sixers got killed in that Knicks series on offensive rebounds. I mean, we can, like, there's some unbelievable stat about it that, yeah, it was after game 4 in that Knicks series. It was 3-1 was the series. Knicks were up 3-1. The point differential in that series was 4 points in those first 4 games. The Knicks had a plus 38 second chance points advantage. Like people, and I say this, and I know like people don't love it. They look at Embiid's lines and he collects rebounds. 100% he's going to collect rebounds. You guys probably saw it in Team USA this summer. He can drive me crazy sometimes on with rebounding. Like, he's not the best rebounder in the world. Tobias Harris, so many times just caught ball watching, not blocking out his guy. Like, Paul George, I think just he gives us that too. You know, even besides the fit, love the fit with him, Maxey, and Embiid, and even in pick and rolls, he can run them with Embiid. It's just like he gives us better rebounding too. I mean, our size is better. Just really, yeah. I think it's a great fit.
And we can say what we want about Paul George's performance in the playoffs. To be fair, he's always been a plus rebounder and a plus defensive player in the playoffs. And that's something that's like, even if he's terrible on offense, at least you get that aspect. I will say I kind of agree with that reflection on Embiid. Like, when you're 7 feet, you're going to be getting a lot of rebounds, but there's a lot of like, I wish this stat doesn't exist, but like a tough rebound percentage, like a percentage of like 30-70 balls, like balls that you're only getting 70% of the time. How many? Because Josh Hart, for example, it feels like he wins every 30-70 ball, but it feels like Embiid has never won a 30-70 ball in his life. And 30-70 balls, obviously I don't expect you to get all of them because they're 30-70 balls, but
get 30.
Yeah, but give me 30. Give me
Yeah.
It's like Kevon Looney feels like he gets 100% of the 30-70 balls. Like,
right.
And you don't know how. Like,
and I'll tell you, I get hate. And I've made funny jokes about I want Kevon Looney. It's because of that reason. Like, in the playoffs, just getting defensive rebounds it's so important. Like, these guys are way too good offensively that you cannot give teams 2 or 3 extra possessions every time down the floor. And we're not even getting offensive rebounds. So we're giving up defensive rebounds. We're not attacking the glass, getting offensive rebounds. We'll get to some of the other signings that can help, I think, a little bit with this. But, like, you can't just give up 2 to 3 possessions every time. I mean,
I think that's fair. The one thing, bro, I got to say, though, and, like, this isn't what y'all are not saying, but to zig on your zag, Embiid was the best player in the NBA for the beginning of the season.
Of course.
Bar none, the dominance was there, and it definitely would have changed this conversation because the need for that offensive or defensive rebound and closing out possessions, it would have been there, but it wouldn't have been as important. And I think that lack of health that we saw with Embiid, his stats, to your point, were amazing, 30 and 13. He was 34 and whatever in 11, I think, in the regular season. But he looked like one of the top 5 players I've ever witnessed with my eyes.
Yeah.
His dominance in the game was unbelievable. He looked, to the eye test, more dominant than Jokic. I know that that's a crazy thing to say because Jokic's finals were otherworldly, but his individual dominance, the way he could steamroll over again. I remember watching a game against the Magic, right? And they're all 6'10", and they can do everything. And he was going nuts. He was just hitting free throw sort of level jumpers like it was nothing and had a complete and utter flow of the game. I think he scored like 16 points in the first 4 minutes of the game. I was like, what am I watching?
Yeah.
So I think to that one point, my biggest thing with you guys is going to be health and chemistry as well. Because I don't think we've ever seen like a fully healthy Embiid. He's also had a lot of bad games. Game 6 and Game 7 against the Celtics the season before too.
Mm-hmm.
But with that health, with that depth, this is a really exciting place to be. So, yeah, man.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say don't get me wrong. It's not like the Sixers overcompensated. I can get into the future moves now. It's not like they went out and got a stretch 4 who rebounds a ton. If we're really looking at it, this team is built at this point of point guards, of centers, and of everyone else. So you've got Tyrese Maxey, you've got Kyle Lowry, you've got Reggie Jackson, right? So those are your point guards. You got your centers. You got Joel Embiid, you got Drummond, you got Bana. Those are your 3 centers. Everyone else is kind of a shooting guard, kind of a small forward, kind of a power forward. It's basically just 3-and-D guys. We have Paul George, we mentioned him, but you got like Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, Eric Gordon, Jared McCain, Ricky Council, shout out, great player, KJ Martin. These are all guys who are really qualified 3-and-D guys, but none of these guys are like power forwards or like shooting guards. These are all wings. These are all guys who stand at 3-point line and play good perimeter defense. I don't know what that would describe this position, but yeah.
Yeah, tons of thoughts on the roster now, and like I agree with you. I think we're a little small, a little bit. I think we could use another big. I think we have like one roster spot available. People talk Marcus Morris. People talk Davis Bertans. I don't love
Bertans would
I don't love Bertans at all.
yuck.
But I mean, yeah, it's like, look, the thing is, like, Caleb Martin, it's gonna for him. Like, I've seen such good moments. Like Anthony, you probably can't even like. He just sees that Celtics series is brutal. But yeah, he's got to hit. He's got to hit threes. He can.
Oh, he doesn't.
Well. Like he can defend well. Oubre was on a minimum last year, and
it was
he had an unreal season,
a rehab season.
Yeah, and earn that contract. Those guys are huge pieces, and like defensively, like there's people have seen it. Like Maxi, they're saying to put on pounds. Like
wait, he has. You saw him at the pregame the conference.
Yep. Like people, he's like the one issue a little bit defensively. Like of course he's out there, but because of offense. But like in terms of switching, we could switch now. Like Martin can switch, Oubre can switch, Paul George can switch. That gives us like so much flexibility. Like I'm not saying Max. Like we had to hide Maxi a little bit last year, like in the playoffs a little bit. Like he couldn't guard Brunson. Obviously, we had to put Oubre on him, and Oubre did fairly well, as well as he could against Brunson in that series. But yeah, I mean the pieces are there. I love our wings. It comes down. You gotta hit shots, hit threes. Oubre cutting. I'm looking forward to that. I'll say this too. B-ball Paul. I'm gonna miss him. Paul Reed. Look, like it wasn't working. It just really like I think I have a stat here. Paul Reed played in the Knicks series when every time Joel sat, he was a minus 44 in that series. Paul Reed. You know how close that series was. Paul Reed was a minus 44. That's the life of a Sixers fan, is like when Embiid comes out of the game, you just have to stay afloat. Like you have to survive those minutes when he's out. Drummond, I think, just a significantly better boost there. He's just bigger. He can rebound better. And then just last point on Drummond, like the Sixers didn't want to trade him 2 years ago to Brooklyn, but like to get that James Harden deal done, Brooklyn essentially was like, no, you have to throw Drummond in that deal with Simmons. So we didn't even want to get rid of Drummond. Now we have him back. I think he's younger than a lot of people think. Like he's still so young.
Like 31.
It's crazy.
He's so young.
Yeah. Good passer still at this point of his career, weirdly. Like you can kind of work with it. Like he can't create off the dribble. He can't post up or at all, but he can kind of, your offense keeps flowing while he's in the game, weirdly.
Yeah. So I think that's an upgrade. Love B-ball. But I think that's just a huge upgrade there. And then, like you said, the wing depth. The wing depth is huge. I mean, the Sixers have like never had that. And I mean, Paul George, Caleb, and Oubre. I mean, that's great. So yeah, feeling good.
And I think there's like fun things here that are like, and I'll disagree. I'll push back a little bit. I don't know if you really need a big. I don't really know if you need a stretch big man. I kind of like the way the team's formatted. If Embiid gets hurt, you're screwed anyways. So let's roll and let's assume that Embiid's playing 40 minutes in a playoff game here. Drummond's playing 8. And at that point, like, do I really need, who's a good example? Who's a stretch 4? Do I really need OG Anunoby compared to Caleb Martin or Paul George at that point? It would be nice, but I kind of like the way that the team is formatted, where all the wings know what the role is. They're there to facilitate scoring and play or to help on the scoring and play some defense. All the guards are there to be offensive hubs. All the centers are there to be played through in some way, shape, or form. Embiid obviously more so than Bana and Drummond. Like, I don't know. I'm really excited to see this on the surviving Embiid being out like stuff. You know, obviously I feel that a ton with the Steph Curry stuff. You know, we play the same game. The moment Steph Curry subs out, how many points are we going down? And then I also feel the thing where you always have to hide your small guards on defense. Like we have to hide Curry. Y'all have to hide Maxey. But most other teams have a small guard to hide. Like the Celtics are the exception to the rule. Like Brunson, he's solid defensively, but he's not an all NBA defender. You know, like other teams, Cavs, they've got small guards to hide, etc. You know, you can deal with that until you get to the Celtics. You know, when you get to the Celtics, you hope Embiid's dropping 45 a game and he coasts you to the finals, but that's a different discussion. Yeah, I don't know. In general, I'm really liking this team, and there's moves to be made. If you come to the deadline and you decide that there's a move you want, you've got 5 or 6 future firsts. So,
yep, I'm gonna hit you with a move right now at the deadline. I want to run by you guys. So, KJ Martin basically signed a contract. I think like the same exact deal that like Josh Okogie signed, 2 years, 16 million, and basically it's like
you're a trade. You're getting
like a balloon deal where they just gave him this money. He's a young player, gave him this deal. Since we're over the first apron, like we gotta, we can't, return more money than we're spending. So we ballooned KJ Martin to try to make him an asset at the deadline. KJ Martin, the piece that I think could be helpful for us is if we stay healthy, obviously, and we're in contention, is like KJ Martin for some Larry Nance. For some Larry Nance flip. We need a flip size.
Yeah, dude, I was thinking Jonathan Isaac. Like type of player, like type of build.
You're right.
But Larry Nance, bro, that's good.
Larry Nance, like great rebounder, really good defender. Like
spaces.
Can shoot. Can defend.
Salaries wise, I'm afraid we might have to like throw in Council or something like that in there. But maybe Morey figures it out like a different way, and it's somebody else. But like that's sort of the move left that I think the Sixers can make.
I kind of like that. I kind of like that move, honestly. I don't know.
Yeah, and then look, like small guards, shooters. We have like Jared McCain. Really like that pick.
He's small. He's small though. To be fair,
he's really small, but in college, great shooter, and he's a very good finisher around the rim too.
Good defender. A little slept on defensively.
Slept on.
Great dancer.
Yeah, TikToker. Council I like. Any offense Council can give this year. Like he's good defensively. He's got bounce that I like. Bona I think is probably like a year 2 project ultimately. Like Bona a lot. Look good in the summer league, but like and then the other guy I was gonna say is Eric Gordon.
Yes, sir.
Look, we just need him to hit a few threes,
hit
a couple shots. He was with Daryl in Houston. I think that's part of the reason he's back. It's kind of like a reunion in Philly with him. Daryl likes the fit. I trust that. So have a little bit of small guards that can shoot a little bit. We talked about wing rotation, upgraded, I think, from Paul Reed to Drummond. So I think that's my prediction. KJ Martin for a Larry Nance flip, something like that.
I like it.
I really like that deal. And also if you're Atlanta, I mean, that kind of makes sense, right? Like at some point, Nance is probably taking up minutes that one of your young centers or one of your centers, not young at this point, one of your centers or one of your wings between Recess Shea, between even DeAndre Hunter, if you want to start playing him at the 4, stuff like that. I actually really, really like that trade for all sides. You could throw in 1 first, a bunch of seconds, do whatever at that point. Some other interesting things about Eric Gordon is like last year when he got minutes, he was disgusting. To start the year, the first 3 months of the season is basically averaging like 16 a game. For the first 3 months, playing 32 minutes a game during that span. But then his minutes trail off, or by the end of the season, he's playing like 20 minutes. Yeah. And when he gets minutes, he shoots well. When he doesn't get minutes, doesn't shoot too well. But like even if Eric Gordon only plays 15 minutes in a playoff game, if Maxey gets hurt for 15 games, Eric Gordon's going to be able to come in, play 25 minutes a game, and give you really good production and raise your floor a good amount. Like and a signing like him, I really like for floor raising. I really like Caleb Martin, frankly, for floor raising if he's healthy, because Martin isn't the 55% from three shooter that he was against the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago, obviously, but he's super consistent, great role player. And same thing with Council too. Like Council, if Council needs to play 18 to 22 minutes a game, he's gonna be able to now. I think. I hope so.
Yep. And then unsung like leader, I think, in the locker room for us.
Yeah.
With like all these moving pieces is Lowry. Like he was vocal during that Knicks playoff series. He was in the huddle. He took the clipboard from Nick Nurse. Like he's definitely, like, as a veteran. He's kind of a leader, I think, in the locker room. I love Kyle Lowry from Philly anyway. So
Him and Nurse got that connect.
they got right, exactly, yeah, exactly, from Toronto, exactly. So I like it. Every piece like makes sense. Every piece on the roster now for the Sixers, like they fit into a good spot. So
Dude,
yeah,
so good. And bro, when you guys got Caleb Martin, that was shocking a little bit.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he turned down whatever amount of money, didn't he turn down a 4-year, 53 mil contract to go play in Philly?
yep. I forget
Like,
from where, but you're right. Yeah, exactly.
That's bro. I mean, you guys look good. That Larry Nance piece, that power forward, that 6'8" to 6'10" who can shoot, play some defense. That feels like the missing piece.
Yeah,
But bro, you guys are in a good spot.
And even a player like that doesn't even need to give you like 35 minutes. Like, because with Embiid, realistically, you're not rolling with two guys who are 6'10" and above when you've got Embiid, hopefully. Like, hopefully you don't need rebounding that badly where you need another 6'10" guy in the lineup. Because frankly, all we've seen from Embiid his whole career is that he needs to be playing next to guys who are 6'8" and lower. Like, that's basically all we've learned.
Super quick point. Like I said at the beginning about Batum, like I'm worried about the Batum loss. Right? It reminded me when you said like 70-30 balls. Nick Batum, I don't know, every single loose ball for the Sixers, every competitive rebound and stuff, it felt like he was getting those boards. Like he is tough in there, and I just think the Sixers like need a piece like that. And like I think he's a tough loss. But again, like I'm being pretty nitpicky, in terms of in terms of that. But like I think he's a big loss that if we can add somebody that can fight for rebounds, help with the 70-30, variance. Like I think that's a piece we could use.
Yeah, bro. Nick Batum, Olympics legend.
Yeah.
In his past. Like he played out of his mind.
Yeah. I mean, he was great for y'all last year. He was genuinely
so good. Eric Gordon could fill those shoes too. I mean, at least in the shooting, I think you could see like some Eric Gordon first round playoff game where he hits 6 threes.
Yeah,
I'll say. Yeah. With that, let's get into some predictions. Let's get into worst and best case scenario to start off with. First, we're gonna go around. What's the ceiling for this team? What's their top end? All things go well.
Wants to start? No, you want to start?
Yeah, dude. I mean, like, it's the Sixers. My whole life, they no confidence to ever get out of the second round ever. Like, that's just like it haunts me to this day, even with the new roster. Like, I'm worried about it. Look, I think Boston is still better than us for sure. Like I think they figured out the roster so well. Like Drew is so key for them. I think Boston's better than us. But look, I mean, if we're healthy, if we're talking best case scenario, and we're healthy here, and Anthony, you get the Embiid that you were talking about to kind of start the season. Look, it hasn't happened. Like Embiid keeps getting injured in the playoffs. That's just the reality. But like, if we're talking best case scenario, I mean, they could win the East. I think they have enough talent. I think right now Boston's better. It's gonna take some other guys stepping up. Caleb Martin doing what he does it at TD Garden, something like that. But like, I think it's possible. This is our best team in years that we've had. So the second round haunts me, but I think we could come out of the East. I just think Boston, on paper right now, they're a little better.
Kind of tend to agree, honestly. I mean, also like in theory, if Boston plays Milwaukee round two and Giannis just puts up 40 a game, like because that's the thing, Boston is good as amazing as they are, to be fair. You know, if Embiid puts up 45 and 20 for a whole series against them, it's gonna be really hard to beat Embiid, no matter what. Like same with Phil, same with Giannis, sorry. So in theory, in the best case scenario, which is not super probable, I could kind of see a situation where like Milwaukee takes out Boston round two, Philly plays Milwaukee round three, and you've kind of wrapped that up. The issue is at that point, you're going to have to go out and beat a Denver, beat a, Minnesota, beat a team like that coming out of the West. And that's going to be pretty tough, especially if you haven't proven that you can beat Boston if you come out the East. But yeah, I mean, honestly, also, this is, frankly, I think this, of all the teams in the East, this is the team that has the best chance to beat Boston straight up. I wouldn't pick any of the teams in the East to beat Boston straight up. I think there's a pretty big gap between all the teams and then Boston. But I think this probably is the best team, or that has the best chance to beat Boston straight up. This is a team, a substantially worse version of this team, I would argue, in my opinion, pushed Boston to 7 2 years ago. That was also a worse version of Boston, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the route. Best case. Again, best case is not not my prediction. But yeah, like I could talk that, like if all that happened, I would not be like stunned. I would be surprised. But you could see this is in the realm of possibility.
No. Totally.
So I like this is where the Sixers are, right? But for me, the best case scenario is starting with the bench. I feel like there's that energy of new Jared McCain, Caleb, Lowry, Eric Gordon, Kelly Oubre Jr. just vibes going nuts. It's like the professional Villanova boys, but they've never been teammates before and they're just having a good time together. Maxey vaults into like a top 12 kind of conversation with consistency. Thought he had great flashing moments of that in the first round, but I was underwhelmed by his ability to carry the Sixers when Embiid got hurt. They went 10 and 21 and he didn't have a good team with him. That being said, a top 12 player can keep that at around 500 level. So that's kind of where we need to go, but he played amazing in the first round. And if Embiid is healthy, to what we were saying, I thought Embiid was I thought he was the best player in the world last year. Like I really, really did. So let's go with, they go 58 and 24. They also happen to catch a heater at the right time and they peak, which we need to see again. I think they beat maybe the Celtics. Kristaps is hurt or something, or like a situation like Max describes happens, and you guys go on and win the chip. I think best case scenario is absolutely the ceiling here as a chip, without a doubt in my mind.
I agree, honestly. Yeah. I will say 58 wins feel steep. Just is that what you said? 50?
58 is the max wins.
Yeah, that feels a little steep just given the team's injury history. Like I would almost predict this team to like regular season be kind of capped out at like a 3 seed, but then have NBA title potential. Like, but I mean, I can't disagree with anything you said there, frankly.
Yeah.
You're also Anthony was on this podcast like banging the drum for Embiid for like 10 straight episodes to start off last year. Like you were like, you literally every time we hopped on the pod, you're like, we have to talk about him.
Yeah, he's crazy.
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
Let me what's it called? Snake draft this and hit this worst case, and then we'll wrap up with our realistic. But I think the worst case scenario is Embiid gets hurt, Maxey just can't take that next step as a leader. I think Paul George, I don't see the worst case being him getting hurt. I see the worst cases having to deal with the Knicks and the Celtics wings. And I still think that the Knicks are probably the second. Well, we'll get into the realistic predictions, but they're a good team. And I could see them going like 46 and 36 or something. And because their floor doesn't feel very low either. I don't see this team bottoming out at all. And I think it'd be crazy enough, like a first round loss to the Knicks or the Bucks or even the Magic in a surprise kind of situation, or they're hurt or something like that, where you're the 4 seed and you play a good 5 seed and it just goes unlucky. So that's not the worst thing in the world, and also not leaving you like with a bad taste in your mouth either. That's where I'm.
I kind of tend to agree, honestly. Like I can't, if you're fully healthy, I really can't see this team getting first rounded by like the Magic. Like unless the Magic take a huge jump, but like that would be surprising. It would have to be like an injury riddled season. You guys end up as the 6 seed and the Knicks are the 3 seed and you get first rounded like that again, pretty much. Like that's kind of yeah, like I can't really see you guys being in the play-in tournament. I would hope.
Yeah, that would be worst case. Like this, exactly. I agree. I think Anthony said 46 wins. That's the floor or so. So like 46 to 58 is kind of where we're thinking. Like this season they won 47. If they go under that, last season they went 47 and 37, 35. If they go under 47 wins this year, like that's a disaster, I think. Like, yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd add to Anthony's worst case is like, yeah, I'm curious about the matchups with like Boston and the Knicks. I think with George, injuries 100% is falls into worst case scenario. I think too, if George is like a little unhappy in his role a little bit, that could just give me. I'm just nervous about that. Like that could give me flashbacks to some bad Sixers moments. So like that's the only thing I'd add. But like if we're healthy, it's good. But 100% agree. I think we're gonna coast a little bit in the regular season. Like we're not gonna try to get the 1 seed. I totally agree with you. I think 3, 4 is in the realm of possibility. But it all depends on what the Sixers do in the playoffs. You know.
Are we maybe overthinking it? And is the worst case scenario maybe just the Sixers having an amazing regular season? Like, you end up like what 58 and whatever, you're the 2nd seed, and then Miami first rounds you out of the play-in. Like, is that really is that low key like the true worst case scenario? Like, is that like we would need to call the number to check up on you, Noah. If that
it would be bad.
Yo,
it would be bad.
That would be, dude. We'd have Logic on this podcast for you, like singing for you.
Yeah.
Making sure you're all right.
I mean, look, that year with the Hawks, we were the 1 seed. We're the best team.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're the best team in the NBA, but we're the 1 seed in the East. And we lost in the second round to a Hawks team that we absolutely should beat. So I know the Sixers well enough that they can, just when we think we're out of like the Simmons debacle, the Harden debacle, and we have like our new team in here, they can't do that. They can't do it again. They can't do it again.
That is low-key, that's the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The boulder rolls back down the mountain and Sisyphus begins to push it up once again.
What if Embiid passes up like in game seven and it's Nikola Jovic on Embiid under the hoop and Embiid passes it back out to Kelly Oubre who fucking bricks a 3.
Bricks it. Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point though, then you're going full rebuild. So maybe that puts you then process 3.0.
Like Embiid, right? Actually, what we should also add to the worst case is Embiid wanting out. Embiid like not liking the fit doesn't work. He was so patient for the Sixers for so long. We've stagnated. Like as a franchise, we just can't get over the hump, and like he's unhappy. Like that's. Yeah, I mean, that's another. I mean, things would have to be really, really bad just given his contract and stuff. But like, hey, if we're talking worst case scenario, that's in there.
Damn. I mean, the future's still bright though, because if the guys were to get first round, you're like, all right, Embiid's out, Maxey, you're in. Here's a bunch of picks from some team. We're still going to be really, really good. We could even get a young star, and I don't know. He goes to friggin' the Knicks or something. Maybe not the Knicks because that would be crazy. But you could trade him. You could trade him to a championship contender and get a ton back. And it would suck, but Maxey looks great, man.
Yeah.
That would be worst case though. If you anytime you got to trade
Yeah.
a top 5 player, that'd be.
That would suck.
All right, predictions though. Noah, hit us with the official Noah Haynes prediction.
Chip? Nah.
Bye.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
sweet.
Prediction. I think exactly like you said, 3 seed. I see it. We get a conference finals rematch with the Knicks. Conference semifinals rematch against the Knicks in the with they have Bridges, we got Paul George. Reminiscent of last year, I think Sixers get it done. Overcome the second round hurdle that the Sixers have. Go on, play Boston, and I think it goes 7, but Sixers fall in 7. And I got Boston. I can't pick Boston to win the chip. I can't pick Boston to win the chip. Denver, I'm a little worried about Denver's roster, but besides the point, I think Boston wins the East. Sixers lose in the conference finals, get through the second round, but lose in the conference finals.
I'm kind of on the same page. I think this is a team that's seeding dependent Eastern Conference Finals. Unfortunately, it's a Celtics thing. If you play the Celtics in the second round, I just cannot, based off of what I've seen from these teams, and this could change in that time. NBA changes fast, but based off what I've seen from these teams, I just cannot, and any team from the East, I just cannot pick any team to beat Boston. Like, it is what it is. So I think as a seeding dependent Eastern Conference team, I'm pretty worried though, because the Bucks in theory should not be as bad as they are. The Bucks should be able to nab a top 3 seed. The Knicks should be a really good regular season team. And so I'm really worried, because if you drop if you're in the 4 or 5 slot, now you're just playing Boston round 2.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm actually quite worried about that. And so, frankly, my prediction is the Philly loses to Boston. And I just don't know if it'll be round 2 or round 3. And frankly, unfortunately, I'm more inclined to say round 2 because I'm a little bit more confident in both the Knicks and the Bucks to be a team that is a 2nd or 3rd seed, unfortunately, in the regular season. So,
yeah, if we're a 4 seed, second round. If we're a 3, I hope we can get the finals. I agree with you. I agree.
I think realistically, I went into this kind of thinking, I actually had you guys making the conference finals last year. Just thought there was going to be some energy in the bracket that you sent out to us.
Oh,
I
yeah.
put down the Sixers. But I don't know. I think, to Max's point, the combination of either being the 4 seed and playing the Celtics in the second round, or being the 3rd seed and maybe the Celtics just happen to coast and are the 2 seed, or playing the Knicks or the Bucks. I don't take the Sixers against the field of teams that aren't the Celtics to make that. I really like the Knicks continuity. I'm really high on the Sixers, but I'm really high on the Knicks, especially what they've been able to acquire this offseason. I think the wing depth is really, really strong, and that's going to be an area that with your depth is going to be helpful, but worried about how that's going to match up. Obviously, you guys have the advantage at the center position, but Brunson, I mean, man, he's unbelievable, right? So I think that's going to be a tough series. I think it'll be a much more competitive series. But yeah, so I'm gonna go. Unfortunately, even though you don't get over the hurdle, it's still another good season, and you lose in 7 games in the second round. So that's my prediction for you guys. Although I do not say that as like a hater of the Sixers, I just think mathematically it might be like possible, but not very high in my mind at this moment.
I kind of tend to agree with Anthony though. Like, I really hope this team, like, no matter what happens, I hope you guys do not freak out, because I kind of, unfortunately, I know we talked about the ceiling could be really high and the ceiling could be really low, or the floor could be really low, but like those things are all dependent off other teams. Like, if we're being honest, this team is probably just going to be a 3, 4, 5 seed. It's probably going to get 2nd or 3rd rounded, and that would be a good result. Like, that would be good. Like, let's get on track. Let's get rolling. Let's get some continuity going finally, and let's be in the conversation. If Tatum gets hurt in the playoffs, now we're the best team in the East. And if not, next year we're gonna be right there, and we're gonna shoot our shot again. And I think like that's a great spot to be in. And I hope the team does not freak out again.
Yeah, I think it, like, Sixers fans through everything, like, we're just so reactionary. Like I think it's gonna depend on like how we go out,
The manner in which.
how we lose. If it's like another, I'm telling you, if it's another like Embiid fluke injury, like in the playoffs, people are just gonna start saying like, when is it not a fluke anymore? Like, this guy just can't play May, June basketball and stay healthy. And so I think the Sixers need to be cautious about how they approach the regular season, but they also got to be cautious about avoiding Boston. I think, they gotta weigh that. Like, they just have to find that balance. But it's the way that I think the Sixers go out that'll impact it. But I agree. Like, if it's competitive and we're close, it would be foolish to, the Knicks traded 5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges. Like, they're sacrificing a lot of their future for bringing Bridges in. Like, it's really hard to say patience to any Sixers fan at all. But if it's competitive and the Sixers go out in a fine way, I think that's possible. And we should kind of like stand pat. But it depends on how it ends, I think.
And even if you get second rounded, if it looks good, you can take Martin's contract, Oubre's contract, and someone else's, and make a big upgrade if you want. Like, we don't gotta.
Yeah.
But you're right. If it looks bad, again, if Embiid passes up a layup at the end of Game 7, like, who knows what's gonna happen? It could be Game 7 of the finals, and they'd still freak out. Like.
Yep. Real quick, I wanna just get this one last stat in there for you two, for you guys. To talk about like this era of like Sixers basketball. I saw this stat, and I think it puts it in good context. And if we lose in the second round, it would be, I think, make this number 0-8. So the Sixers throughout the entire Embiid era in the playoffs, they played 7 teams in the top 10 in the net rating. So like the top third of the league, like any legit like formidable playoff team. And the Sixers in the Embiid era against those 7 teams that fell into the top 10 in net rating, 0-7. 0-7. So like the Sixers, and maybe this is how we end it. The Sixers have not beaten a really quality playoff team in the Embiid era. Like, that's why my prediction is like we get one. We beat the Knicks this upcoming year. But if we go 0-8, and we lose in the second round, like, there's going to be questions again. So, yeah. So that summarizes Embiid era a little bit. As much as I love him, as much as I love how much Anthony likes him, it's tough. So we'll see.
Hey, man, it's tough. Your Sixers fans are a team. You guys are fans of resilience. I feel like I share, and Max, we both share your experience to a certain extent before his championships and my recent championship came in, of just like the years of when's it going to happen. And with all that in mind, can you share with us and with the audience a little bit about how you first became a Sixers fan, and what are some moments that really resonate with you?
Man, I feel like I was tail end a little bit of Allen Iverson, to an extent. Like, 01 was the best year, I was 2, 3. But like the AI era, the Eric Snow with AI, like I was following those teams. Aaron McKee, my Temple guy, Aaron McKee, those teams, I'll, even pivoting, like my mom, I think, like, favorite Sixer of all time. She grew up a Sixers fan. Favorite Sixer of all time, Doug Collins. He was our coach. And like, I was a huge Doug Collins fan. And then you go into the process, and like things unravel. Maybe hot take among Sixers fans, I'm not a huge Sam Hinkie guy. Like, I think, like, I just didn't like his approach drafting Nerlens Noel, Jahlil Okafor.
That was
Michael
awful.
Carter-Williams.
Yeah, like it just, he drafted 3 bigs in a row with bad knees. Like, I wasn't huge on that. And then, yeah, I mean, I'll tell you though, process Sixers, everything the Sixers do from this time out. One of my favorite Sixers, I think, ever, Tony Roten. Tony
Yes,
Roten.
yes.
I'm left-handed. I'm a guard. I just love Tony Roten. He's like the process Sixer. Like when I think of the Sixers during the process, he was the best. He gave us hope. It was so bleak. Jakari Sampson, Arnett Moultrie, we're running out. The worst teams ever. I think 11 wins.
Bynum.
Oh,
Yo,
Andrew Bynum.
The haircut Bynum, or was that Cavs?
Oh, I think that was
I think-
haircut Bynum.
It might have been a haircut.
Royal Ivy.
Royal Ivy, 100%. Royal Ivy, Hollis Thompson.
Hollis
Hollis Thompson.
Oh my god.
So we were just trying to find any.
It's who could finish
moments.
a basketball game. Who could finish a basketball game?
Sorry?
It was just finding anyone who could play, who could finish who could play 30 minutes in a basketball.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't need to win it. Who could just try it out there?
Yep. And
Alex Poitras?
Sorry?
Alex Poitras?
Alex Poitras.
Poitras, that's how you say it? Do you remember?
Kentucky.
Kentucky? Was he a
Played at Kentucky a little bit with Cal. Yeah. Dude, it was Ish Smith. The amount of time. I think Ish Smith, he
3-time legend.
He must have been on the Sixers every year. It's brutal.
Bayless?
Jared Bayless. Oh, yeah.
God,
We had guards. We had guards, Jared Bayless, Ish Smith, and Tony Roten, and none of them could shoot. We're playing an NBA basketball game, and none of them could shoot. It was crazy.
Dude, TJ McConnell would come in and he would be like, "Oh my god!" You'd be like,
yeah.
You'd be like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah.
Like this is revolutionary.
And then that's not even talking about the whiffs on Fultz. And the Fultz thing is just because of Tatum. Like we traded with our biggest rival to move up. We traded with just for us to take Fultz and them to take Tatum. And then what was it? We drafted, which wasn't bad at the time, but looks horrible now. We drafted Ben Simmons over Jaylen Brown. It's Sixers.
The first 5 years of that was totally fine. And then
I know. And now it's brutal. But yeah, dude, process Sixers, that's why I grew up watching. Some of the toughest basketball, I'll tell you. That's why I got into college a little bit.
That's so funny.
You can only watch so many of those games. Like you just So
was it the 15-16 Sixers? The 10-72? Oh man.
Legendary.
Wait, dude, you straight up dude, I realized that 15-16, we were literally 16, 17 years old. You're like this is like a relevant time period in your life that your basketball team is literally historically bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. 100%.
Bro, I got a shout out. Actually, one of my sneaky favorite Sixers teams of all time. So this is 2011-2012, and Derrick Rose gets hurt in the first round as the 1 seed against you guys as the 8 seed.
Yep.
And the Celtics were the 4 seed and got to avoid the Heat, who were the 2 or the 3. And we're like, this is perfect. We got a shot. And you guys had Elton Brand, an old Elton Brand, but still Spencer Hawes, young Drew Holiday, in his prime Andre Iguodala, Jody Meeks, and Evan Turner, and a young Vucevic, and Lou Williams, and Thaddeus Young. And that team was good, and they pushed the Celtics to 7, bro. So you guys were 1 win away from the conference finals in that season too. Like
that's crazy.
I
love that team.
That was a great team.
Reading those names back, I love some of those guys. Like
was Lavoy Allen?
Lavoy Allen, yeah.
Lavoy Allen was on there. He was a rebounding monster, Lavoy Allen. I remember that.
If you don't make that Bynum trade and you low-key just rebuild with that team, you're probably in a good spot. But the Bynum trade that sends Vucevic out is a killer.
That was a killer. I thought Evan Turner was going to be so good. We drafted him, I think, number 2 overall.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be
player of the year in college.
Yeah. Thad Young till recently, good NBA player.
Yeah.
Love that Thaddeus Young. Love that. Yeah, that team, that brings me back. That was a good team. Looking
And I
back.
think depth.
Pre-process team.
No
Yeah.
Sione?
Good process. Yeah.
You had no Sione?
Yeah.
Damn, Anthony,
That's
that's actually a
pause.
cool of a
Yeah.
team. Great team.
Yeah.
Dude, that team gave me some nightmares, honestly. I was like, these guys are going to be hard to beat.
And then we blew it up just completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely.
Ugh,
Well,
man.
with that, Noah, thanks for coming on. Spit a lot of Sixers talk. This is literally going to be a hour and a half episode. So thanks for bearing with us. Literally pleasure to have you. Is there anything else you want to talk about? We'll give you the floor before we head out.
Nah, like I said at the beginning, you gotta spit in hoops. You gotta follow these guys along. If you know ball, you're listening to Spittin' Hoops. So, but hey, thank you guys for having me. Let's hope the Sixers get over that second round hump. But appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Noah Haynes. Very happy to have you on finally. Long overdue. Hey, guys, we'll be back soon enough. Shout out Davis Bertans once more. We love you on this pod, or do we? Not sure. Still got a lot to talk about. Big off season ahead in general, and we're so excited for the upcoming season. So, we'll catch y'all soon. Until then, we'll be here as always. Thank you, Noah, for being here. Spittin' Hoops. Peace.